listeners, get ready for this. We're talking giant monsters, like giant kaiju in your D&D games. You sent in a stack of pages from this Dungeons and Daikaiju supplement, so we're diving into that to help, make sense of it all.
Yeah, we've got excerpts from all over, it seems. Lore, new monsters. It's impressive.
So first things first, let's talk about what makes this world different. You can't just, drop a giant Godzilla into regular D&D and call it a day.
Right. This isn't just a reskin. They've built a whole history around the kaiju.
Yeah, they're like forces of nature, not just monsters. We're talking about ancient times where they're every step reshaped continents,
It makes you think about the impact on civilizations. Imagine, kingdoms rising and falling based on the migration patterns of these kaiju.
And the myths, the stories people would tell about these beings.
Oh, absolutely. The religions that would spring up around beings of that power.
But then it gets even wilder. The supplement mentions this legend of the great bard queen, right?
The slumber song?
Yeah, the slumber song. She basically sang the kaiju to sleep. Can you imagine? The whole world breathing a sigh of relief?
It's a fascinating concept, this idea that, the world lived under the constant threat of these kaiju, and then suddenly peace. But at what cost?
Right, because it's is the slumber song a blessing or a curse? What happens when it inevitably fades and things are definitely stirring?
The fall of Jandon. Not exactly a sleepy little village.
It's on, wiped out by this, multi-limbed, armored kaiju, Harnick, I think it was called.
Yeah, Harnick. They really emphasize the scale. This isn't a monster you fight in a dungeon. This is a creature that can level a city with a single step. Changes the whole game, really.
So, running away is a valid option in this world, right?
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is know when not to fight.
But humanity isn't just rolling over. The supplement talks about this group, the Armor Union.
They're trying to fight back, yeah.
With magic-infused tech, they call it Aegis armor.
Combining the best of magic and technology, think Iron Man meets, Gandalf.
That's such a cool visual, and it opens up a whole can of worms for campaigns. Who are these armorers? Where are they getting the resources to build these suits? What are the risks?
And what happens when they inevitably face off against a kaiju? Is it even a fair fight?
Right. And it's not just about, technology versus kaiju. The supplement mentions all these factions with different philosophies. Some want to fight, some want to appease. And then there are those who worship the kaiju.
It's the cults.
Cults, yeah. And imagine the role-playing possibilities there.
Absolutely. Do your players join the resistance, or do they fall in with a kaiju cult? Do they try to study the old prophecies?
Whoa.
So much potential for intrigue.
And that's before we even get to the individual kaiju, each more bizarre and terrifying than the last. But first, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages. All right, we are back. And we were just talking about the different factions in this kaiju-filled world, but before we get too deep into that...
We have to talk about ley lines.
Oh, yeah. Ley lines are, a big deal in this setting. It's not just, there's some extra magic here.
Right, they're almost like rivers of raw power in this world.
And the kaiju are drawn to them.
Naturally. It's like a giant, magical, all-you-can-eat buffet for them.
So what happens when a fire-breathing kaiju stumbles into, a major ley line nexus?
You get a pretty exciting campaign scenario, that's for sure.
So, more powerful kaiju. Got it. But there's more to it, right? They're not just drawn to the power, are they?
Right. The supplement suggests that the kaiju might be drawn to imbalances in the ley lines. What if those rampages, what if they're not just mindless destruction? What if they're trying to fix something?
So they could be trying to, heal the world's magic, not destroy it.
Exactly. It throws the whole good versus evil thing for a loop.
That's awesome. It adds a whole other layer of complexity to these creatures. It's not just about stopping them, it's about understanding them.
And figuring out if their way of fixing things is actually going to destroy everything.
Which makes you wonder, how do you fight that? Do you even try?
Well, that's where the player options come in. The supplement has this new class, the Kaiju Slayer.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about them.
They're warriors who can channel ley line energy.
So they're basically fighting fire with fire.
In a way, yes. They can use that energy to go toe-to-toe with a kaiju. It's pretty awesome.
It sounds very anime, in the best way possible.
It definitely has that feel. But it's not all about the big battles. This supplement really emphasizes the impact the kaiju have on the world, even when they're not actively stomping on things.
Right, like we were saying earlier, the political intrigue, the cults.
Imagine a world where a kaiju sighting isn't just a disaster, but a political event. Kingdoms could rise and fall based on who controls the aftermath, who controls the narrative.
So you've got these different factions all vying for power. Some want to control the kaiju, some want to understand them, some want to worship them.
And then you've got the players, caught in the middle of it all. Do they side with the armor union? Do they try to learn the secrets of the kaiju cults? Do they try to find a different way?
And let's not forget the new player races. We've got the Banshee tied to Archana, the Spider Queen.
Creepy and cool, they're all about shadow magic and secrets.
Then there are the Mangani, giant, intelligent gorillas.
Right, and they have this deep connection to their own kaiju, Masok. They represent a different way of living alongside these creatures, a more harmonious way.
They almost make the other races look kind of bad, you know, like, hey, maybe if you tried talking to the giant monsters instead of just throwing bombs at them.
It's all about perspective. And then there are the Mionara, who are all about honor and discipline. They've been training for generations to face impossible odds.
Okay, but let's be real. The main course here, the reason we're all really excited, it's the kaiju themselves. We've talked about a few, but give us the good stuff.
Well, we've got Rugen, the Thundering King, who's basically a giant fire-breathing sea serpent.
With way too many teeth, if the illustration is anything to go by.
And then there's Arcana, the Spider Queen, who rules the Underdark.
Don't forget Wakyu, the Thunderbird.
Right. And those are just a few examples. There are elemental kaiju, embodying the classic elements, but on a much grander scale. Imagine a fire kaiju that can turn an entire forest into a blazing inferno, or a water kaiju that can cause tsunamis with a flick of its tail.
And it makes you think about the ecological impact, right?
Oh, absolutely. The supplement talks about how Wakyu's droppings, for example, are a potent magical regent.
Okay, gross, but also kind of cool.
It shows how these creatures, even the destructive ones, are part of a larger ecosystem. Their very existence can create resources, fuel magic, and reshape the landscape in ways we can barely comprehend.
And some people want to harness that power.
Of course. Where there's power, there's always someone who wants to control it. Which brings us to some of the more ethically ambiguous factions in this world.
But even beyond those who seek to control the kaiju, there's a whole other category that makes even the elemental ones look like house pets. The mythical kaiju.
The stuff of legends.
Like Chitna, the queen of kaiju. She's all about light and healing. A benevolent kaiju.
It challenges our assumptions, doesn't it? Not all powerful creatures are destructive. Some might even be protectors.
And then there's Arcana, the Spider Queen, who's not quite so benevolent.
But no less fascinating.
It's like, just when you thought you had a handle on this world, they hit you with the mythical kaiju, and you realize you're just scratching the surface. It's like we've gone from playing in a sandbox to, like, building sandcastles on the edge of a volcano.
And this supplement, it doesn't just stop at the lore, you know? It gives you the tools to actually use all this in your games.
Okay, so less theory, more monster battling. What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Well, first off, scale. We've mentioned it, but it's important.
These things are huge.
Huge. You can't just use a regular battle map.
No more 5-foot squares.
Right. You've got to think big. Describe the battlefield in terms of landmarks.
Like the kaiju's foot comes down, crushing the town square.
Exactly. And the players. They need to think differently, too.
Not just like, I hit it with my sword.
Right. This isn't about hitting harder. It's about strategy. Maybe they need to distract it, lead it away from a populated area.
Or even try to talk to it, if it's, you know, one of the smarter ones.
It completely changes the dynamic of an encounter.
But before we even get to fighting or talking, we need to find these kaiju. And the pre-made adventures in this supplement, they sound wild.
Oh, yeah, they're really creative.
Like rumors of war. That's the first one, right?
Right. It starts with this rumor of a ship that encountered something big in the ocean.
The Sea Sprite, I think it was called?
Yeah, Sea Sprite. And the players are hired to investigate.
That's simple enough.
It never is, though. Turns out, the surviving crew, they're being hunted by Banshee cultists.
The Banshee are involved? Figure?
They're trying to cover up the whole incident.
But why? What's so important about this one ship?
They're trying to summon Arcana, the Spider Queen.
Oh, that's not good.
Nope.
So now the players have to stop them.
It's a race against time.
What kind of stuff do they have to do in this adventure?
A little bit of everything. Investigation, social encounters, combat.
Oh, and I bet those Banshee cultists aren't going down without a fight.
Oh, absolutely not. They're tough, they're resourceful, and they're not afraid to use their connection to Archana to their advantage.
So, some creepy crawly encounters, I imagine.
Oh, you can count on that? The supplement even throws in a familiar face as a recurring antagonist.
Who's that?
Shard Warthorn.
Shard Rothorn. Wait, I know that name.
Sole survivor of Harnick's attack on Jandon.
Oh, right. The guy's obsessed with kaiju, isn't he?
Obsessed. But he doesn't just want to understand them. He wants to control them.
And now he's involved with the Banshee and their giant spider god. Yeah, that's not going to end well for anyone. So that's rumors of war, right? What about this Echoes of the Deep? I hear there's a shark involved.
Timate Mango.
Timet Mango. Okay, that is a cool name.
He's a giant shark. Kaiju.
A giant shark? That's just awesome.
This adventure is all about dealing with the aftermath of a kaiju attack. Timate Mango has already hit a coastal town, wiped it off the map.
I bet the descriptions in that adventure are intense.
Oh yeah, they really paint a picture of the devastation.
But the players aren't just like cleaning up the wreckage, are they?
No. They have to figure out why Timate Mango attacked in the first place.
Yeah.
And try to prevent it from happening again.
Which probably means figuring out what a giant shark kaiju even wants.
Right. Was it drawn there for a specific reason? Is it guarding something?
Or is it just hungry?
Those are the questions they need to answer. And they're not easy answers to find.
Speaking of not easy answers, what about these Titan golems? We've danced around it, but I need details. What are they?
The supplement is a little vague on the details, to be honest. They're saving that reveal for later.
Come on.
But from what I gather, they're magical constructs. Giant ones. Built to fight the kaiju.
That's like giant robots versus giant monsters.
Pretty much.
I kind of love it. But also, talk about a recipe for disaster. Who's building these things?
Exactly. And what happens when a Titan golem goes haywire?
Or falls into the wrong hands. Yeah, that's a whole other problem. Okay, so we're a little light on specifics, but it sounds like Titan golems are going to be a big deal in this setting.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
So, rumors of war pits players against Banshee cultists trying to summon a giant spider. Echoes of the Deep is all about dealing with the aftermath of a giant shark attack. What about the third adventure, Into the Storm? What's that one about?
That one takes the players to Vexed and Kist, a remote region that's also a major ley line nexus.
Okay, so lots of magical energy. Sounds like a kaiju magnet.
It is. There's an ancient standing stone there, covered in these mysterious runes.
And of course, everyone wants to get their hands on it.
Everyone! You've got the Armor Union, who think it holds the key to improving their Aegis armor.
Practical.
And then you've got Shard Rothorn and his band of, shall we say, enthusiasts.
It's trying to control the kaiju, I bet.
He's convinced the standing stone holds the key to doing just that.
This is why we can't have nice things. Okay, so it's a race to the stone. What happens when they actually figure out what the runes mean?
They learn the truth about the kaiju.
Which is?
That they're not just monsters, they're guardians, protectors of the world's magical balance.
So all this destruction, it's them trying to fix something.
It would seem so. Something happened a long time ago. Some ancient pact was broken. And the kaiju, they're trying to fix it.
Even if it means destroying everything.
Their methods aren't exactly subtle.
But if they're right, and the world is out of balance...
It makes you think, doesn't it? Are they the monsters in this story, or are we?
So what happens then? Do the players try to stop the kaiju, or help them?
That's a choice they have to make.
Talk about a tough call.
There are no easy answers in this adventure.
So, to wrap things up, this Dungeons and Daikaiju supplement
is pretty impressive.
It's not just about fighting giant monsters, is it?
No, it's about exploring the impact those monsters have on the world. The myths, the cultures, the politics. It's a whole new way to experience D&D.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink what a D&D game can be.
It's not just about Dungeons and Dragons anymore.
It's about giant monsters and the end of the world as we know it, and I am here for it.
Me too.
All right, listeners, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but we want to hear from you. Have you run a kaiju campaign? Are you planning to pick up Dungeons and Daikaiju? Let us know in the comments. And until next time, happy gaming.